रेडियो उड़ान के अपडेट्स लेने के लिए इस चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और इस वीडियो को ज्यादा से ज्यादा लाइक कीजिए और शेयर कीजिए। फॉर मोर इन्फो लॉग ऑन टू www.radioudan.com।
दोस्तों, आप सभी का बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। आप सुन रहे हैं रेडियो उड़ान, अ फ्लाइट ऑफ लाइफ, और इस वक्त मैं हूँ आपके साथ मीनल सिंघवी। शो है टेकसिटी का। दोस्तों, पिछले हफ्ते हमने सीखा था कि क्लब हाउस को कैसे यूज करते हैं आईफोन में। क्लब हाउस क्या है, ये सब कुछ हमने सीखा था, लेकिन आईफोन में। लेकिन जैसे कि मैंने आपको बताया कि अब क्लब हाउस जो है वो एंड्रॉयड वर्जन के लिए भी अवेलेबल है। तो आज हम सीखेंगे ऑस्टिन पिंटो और उनके कुछ फ्रेंड्स से कि कैसे हम एंड्रॉयड पर क्लब हाउस को चला सकते हैं, क्या क्या फीचर्स इन्होंने दिए हैं एंड्रॉयड पे, ये सब कुछ हम सीखेंगे। मैं जानती हूँ कि हमारे बहुत से लिसनर्स हैं जो हिंदी यूजर है, जिन्हें हिंदी में पॉडकास्ट सुनना ज़्यादा पसंद है। लेकिन आज ये हम इंग्लिश में अवेलेबल है हमारे पास, तो हम इंग्लिश में आपको बताएंगे कि कैसे एंड्रॉयड पे हम क्लब हाउस यूज़ कर सकते हैं। और भी बहुत सारे ट्यूटोरियल बना रखे हैं blindandroiduser.com की वेबसाइट पर। बहुत सारे एप्लीकेशंस की ट्यूटोरियल वहाँ पर है, तो आप उस पेज को जाकर एक्सेस कर सकते हैं, उनको सुन सकते हैं। अगर आपको किसी भी तरीके के कोई डाउट आते हैं तो आप उनके हेल्पलाइन पे उन्हें पूछ भी सकते हैं, और अगर आपकी कोई रिक्वायरमेंट है तो वो भी आप उन्हें बता सकते हैं। तो चलिए अब हम चलते हैं और सीखेंगे कि कैसे एंड्रॉयड में क्लब हाउस को चला सकते हैं, क्या क्या फीचर्स उन्होंने दिए हैं, इसके बारे में हम बात करेंगे और जानेंगे ऑस्टिन पिंटो और उनके फ्रेंड्स से।
It is time for your favorite Android podcast from the crew of blindandroidusers.com. Kick back and enjoy another fine episode from these Google fanboys as they navigate Android from a blindness perspective. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome to episode 23 of the Blind Android Users podcast. I'm Ed Green and I'm joined this week by my co-hosts Warren Carr and Austin Pinto, and special guest from Live Accessible, Kerry Morales. In the In Focus section this week, I'm going to be giving you a demonstration of an app that's been the talk of social media for the last year and has finally made it to Android, and that is Clubhouse. This week, I'm going to demonstrate a social media app which has recently arrived on Android called Clubhouse. Clubhouse was launched on iOS in beta a little over a year ago. It still is in beta and was rolled out to the US Play Store this week. That's the week of the 10th of May, and it will be coming to other English-speaking Play Stores very soon. It may well already be in Canada and the UK by the time you listen to this, but if it's not, it will be shortly. What's unique about Clubhouse is that it's an audio-only social media app. So there's no text, there's no video, it's all entirely voice-driven. It's not an app aimed at blind people. I think it has around 10 million registered users, not all active, obviously, but that'll give you a feel for the span of the user base. It's much wider than the blindness community, and indeed many celebrities have used it. Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, Anthony Fauci, the US medic who fronts up the COVID coverage, was on there the other day. So an app that has really got some traction in the social media landscape. It is invite only at the minute. It is in beta, so we'll have a look at the registration screen when we go into the app. Once you have registered, there are a couple of ways that you might get invited. It asks people for permission to view their contacts, and if someone is already on the app who has your number stored in their contacts and they've allowed their contacts to be viewable by Clubhouse, they will be invited to authorize your admission. If not, if you ask around, you may well be able to get an invite off someone you know, perhaps someone in the Blind Android Users group, who knows, or other friends that you may have or contacts who are on the app already. I usually say when I'm demonstrating something that what you will hear on your end may well be a little bit different to what I hear on mine, and vice versa when we're looking at these apps. That's particularly true of Clubhouse because it's an app that gets updated very, very frequently as new features get added, things get fixed. They do seem to roll out updates and fix things with remarkable rapidity. There were quite a few issues earlier on the iOS side where bits of the app weren't particularly accessible. A lot of that has got fixed. The Android app at the minute doesn't have all of the features that the iOS app does. And I'll talk about some of that in a minute when we delve into the app. So let's get started.
Clubhouse has 6 notifications. Column 5.
And here's Clubhouse. I'm logged out of it now, so I'm hoping that when I go in there, it prevents me with an option either to sign in or register. I won't actually register because I have an account already. I shall take you through the registration screen though.
Clubhouse. Party popper, welcome. Out of grid. We're working hard to get Clubhouse ready for everyone. When we wrap up the finishing touches, we're adding people gradually to make sure nothing breaks. Smiley face, anyone can join with an invite from an existing user or reserve your username, and we'll text you if you have a friend on the app who can let you in. We are so grateful you're here and can't wait to have you join. Folded hands, medium skin tone, house call, Roman into Clubhouse team.
So that's what I was saying earlier. You can either get invited, or if your number is stored in the contacts of someone who has allowed their contacts to be viewable, they can let you in themselves. They'll get notified that you've joined. Clubhouse has a lot of notifications. We'll talk about that later.
Get your username button. Get your username.
So,
Tap to activate.
So this is the button you want to register to get your username.
Editing phone number. Edit box. Showing dial keyboard. Double tap and hold to long press.
So once we're in a phone number field, I'm going to flick left.
United Kingdom phone code is +44. +44. Double tap to activate.
So you'll want to check what that country code is set to. When I first registered for Clubhouse, it didn't think I was in the United Kingdom. That was, I have to confess, on my rarely used iOS device because I've been in since February, so it wasn't available officially on Android then.
Enter your phone number.
So it took us to the phone number field, which we're back at.
I enter in your number. You're agreeing to our term. Next button. Next. Double tap to
So you enter a phone number. I might put one in just so we can see this next screen, and then hopefully I can cancel it before I do anything drastic. Oops. No, that one's a dash. We'll put 0.
4 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 2 1.
Let me just check that's enough digits. Yeah. Out of the entirely fictitious phone number, I'll hit next.
Editing password. Edit box. Showing. Enter the code we just texted you. Back button. Enter the editing. Didn't receive it. Tap the next button.
So it's not going to let me do that. I'd forgotten quite how the registration process works. So it will have texted that entirely fictitious phone number with a password, which I would enter here. It would then ask me to choose a username. But the screens are fairly straightforward. It's a fairly typical registration process. I don't have a second SIM, unfortunately, so I can't show you exactly how that works. But you'll see that things are nice and labeled on the registration screen at any rate. So what I'm going to do now is to back out of here.
Back button. Keyboard hidden. Home button. Back button. 07777111111. Enter field. Editing. Zeros. Back button. Keyboard hidden. Home button. Back button. Back button. Home button. Party popper, welcome. You're working hard to get your username. Have an invite text. Sign in.
So I'm going to sign in instead. So I'm just going to enter in my details to get us logged in. So that's my phone number now entered into the app. The next button for this is not always where you might expect it to be. Actually, it's above the 2 key pretty much on my device. So
6 3 2 text button. Clubhouse. Editing. Password. Edit box. Showing numeric password keyboard. Double tap and hold to long press. Editing options available. Use swipe up then right to view. Message. Clubhouse. Your Clubhouse verification code is 2312.
You're not going to be able to do a right lot with that 4-digit code in this particular instance. So I don't mind you having heard it.
Text button. 2 4 bullet. 3 bullet. 1 bullet. Text button. Clubhouse 2 4 bullet. Keyboard hidden.
Now, interestingly, when you enter in your code to log in, you don't need to hit the next button. There is a next button. It's in the same place above the 2 key, but when you're entering in that verification code, you don't need to enter it. So I'm going to have a look at the buttons at the top of the app now, and then I'll explain where we are, and then we'll dive into some of these buttons a bit.
No previous link. No next link.
Yeah.
Collectibles file with. Load again. Search button. Advice button. Search button.
So at the very top we have search.
Advice button. Double upcoming events button. Notifications button. My profile button. 22. My profile button.
So those are our 5 buttons.
Advice. Search button.
Search, invites, upcoming events, notifications, and profiles. Now, how does Clubhouse work? Clubhouse essentially allows people to create rooms that you can talk in. That could be an informal discussion between friends. It could be a single person presentation with hundreds of people in the audience. It could be a hybrid of those things. Perhaps there are a few people on stage and a few people listening. I'll explain what the stage is in a minute. So where you are when you enter is on a main feed. And this is called the hallway in Clubhouse. You can have various different types of rooms. You can have private rooms where only nominated people can go. Unless you're one of those, you won't see any of them. There are what's called social rooms. Now, like many other social media apps, Clubhouse works through the premise of following different users, a bit like Twitter does in that respect. So the sorts of rooms you see in your hallway are dictated by the people you've chosen to follow. If you don't follow anybody or join any clubs, I'll talk about clubs in a minute, then you won't see much on your feed. You'll see some trending rooms unless you turn that off in settings, and you might see some fairly random things. But to make Clubhouse interesting, you need to follow people or topics that you yourself are interested in. So a social room, anyone who you are following, you will be able to see that. And if you create a room and make it social, your followers will be able to see it. If someone joins a social room, then their followers can also see it. So sort of the audience for a room expands potentially depending on who joins it. The third type of rooms are public rooms. That means anyone at all on the app can join them. So those are rooms, and they're a mixture of those 3 types. Now, there are also rooms within clubs. It's possible to create, perhaps unsurprisingly given the name on Clubhouse, actual clubs. Think of these as special interest groups or Facebook groups. So we have now a blind Android users club. I created that the other day. It's not particularly active yet because we haven't decided how to use it, but we are recruiting members. So I could start a room just generally. I could make it public, I could make it for my followers, and just make it about Android. And it could exist in the hallway, but much better if I've got a special interest topic like that to find a club for it, because then people who are interested in Android and have decided to follow the club or join the club can get notified that that room exists. So you can kind of have a room that's miscellaneous in a hallway. You can give it a topic name, but you don't have to. But then it's not attached to a club, and obviously it's a bit more difficult, although not impossible, obviously, for those who share that interest to find it. So if there are special interest things, it might be a good idea to start a club or find a club with that interest, join it, and then see if that club allows you to create rooms within it. That's a setting controlled by club moderators. Before I dive into more of the app settings, worth just talking through some of the consequences of this still being in beta and all that stuff you heard at the start about the app still growing. When you join, you won't have even though Android itself doesn't have all the features of iOS yet, you won't have all the privileges, for the want of a better word, that more active members who have been on it a while will have. So for instance, when you join, you'll be able to invite 2 other people. The more you participate on Clubhouse, either by participating in other people's rooms or, better yet, creating your own, you will be able to unlock things on Clubhouse more quickly, such as more invites. The other thing you will be able to unlock is you'll be able to start a club, although it may take a little while for you to be able to do that. Currently, you can only create clubs on iOS, and you can only do some of the club admin things on iOS as well. So I had, annoyingly, to create our Blind Android club on iOS. When you do that and you're invited to, or if someone does that and you're interested in a club and you want to join it, you become a follower of that club, and then an admin can invite you to join the club fully. If you're a follower of the club, you'll still see club rooms, or some of them anyway. But when you're a fully fledged member, sometimes you see more rooms. Sometimes you're able to start rooms yourself, depending on the rules that the club founder or the club admins have set. So let's go in then and have a look at some of these buttons before we go down the hallway. Let's see what we've got. So search.
Find people and clubs. Edit box. Out of list.
So you can either search for people or search for clubs. Now I'm going to see what we have by way of cricket on Clubhouse. I quite like. So let's
Show in English. T. Pause. F. T. T.
do a search for cricket.
I. T. T. K. K. China Cricket. Torrent E. Out of list. Pause. T. T. Delete. Search.
We'll search.
Showing password keyboard. 1. Create back button. Cricket. Edit box. Find cancel button. Selected. People. Tab. Clubs. Tab. 2 of 2. Clubs.
So once I've keyed that in, I can either search for people or clubs. Now, because I've put in a subject matter, I'm going to search for clubs.
Clubs. Selected. Cricket Stadium. 71 members. 4K followers. Enlist. Cricket Stadium. Showing items 1 to 6 of 30. Double tap to activate. International Cricket Discussion. 5 members. 1K. Cricket Stadium. 71 members. 4K.
So Cricket Stadium is interesting. What they have done, and I've seen this pop up on my feed because I follow people who are in it. If there's a game of cricket on, they will join it. Some of the people watching it on television will tell those of us without televisions what's happening. So not specifically aimed at blind people, but quite a good thing. So I'm going to go in here and see if I can follow this club.
Keyboard hidden. Go next link. Go next link. At Cricket Stadium. Following. Switch. And Mishra. Please don't provide HTTPS. Following. Switch. Double tap the
So I'm already following it. What I think it said was that it had 71 members and 4,000 followers. That suggests to me that they want to keep the core membership fairly small, perhaps because members are able to start rooms and they don't want all the followers to. I don't know why, by the way, Talkback is occasionally saying no next link. I'm swiping right. The phone is locked to portrait, so I don't know if that's a slight glitch. As I say, that there's no question that my orientation has been flipped, so it shouldn't be doing that. Not a particularly big deal though. So I'm going to back out of there. So you could key in Android. You would find blind Android users if you did that. You can key in people. So let's do that. Let's key in a person.
Go next link. Show back button. Cricket. Edit box. Find people. People. Show in English. Search. Pause. Delete. Deleted. Delete. 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 Delete.
Let's see if I can find Austin.
Deleted. Delete. A. A. Y. U.
I know he's on here because I invited him.
R. T. I. I. N. N. Space. Austin. B. L. B. B. I. I. N. N. T. T. O. O. L. Search. Pause. Delete. L. Deleted. Search.
So I've
Showing password keyboard. Back button. Austin Pinto. Edit. Cancel button. Selected. People. Tab.
Now it switched it back to people, which is actually what I want.
Clubs. Tab. Austin Pinto. Enlist. Austin Pinto. Robin Austin. Hello. Austin Pinto.
Oh, we have 2 Austin Pintos. I know which one's ours because I'm already following as it happens, but let's open it up.
Keyboard hidden. Go next link. Back button. Options button. Profile photo button. Change notification options button. Following. Switch. Following.
Yeah, so that's our Austin. I invited in and I'm following him. So you can key in people. You can key in clubs. As you'll have gathered from that, it's quite helpful when people put in biographies because, and I'll show you that in a minute, because then you actually know who they are. So I'm going to go back out of there And
Advice button.
next is invites. I have 5 invites. If you go in here, you can send an invite to someone you would like to be on Clubhouse. Just a few things about this, because we're all international. And there was some discussion on the mailing list about whether or not you would get charged for sending a text message were you to invite someone from overseas if you're carrying charges for international messages. You would, but all the text message actually does is notify the person that they've been invited. If you have the friend of the number for a friend overseas and you go to invite and you put in that number and you hit whatever it is next, a text message app opens. If you cancel out of that message though and just email the person to say I've invited you, their number will actually be logged by Clubhouse. The text message itself only notifies the potential invitee that they've been invited. It's not necessary to have the Clubhouse invite activated. So if an overseas friend does want you to invite them and you don't want to pay the international text charge, if you incur those, don't worry, you don't have to. Just cancel out the text message when it opens, and they will be able to register with their phone number, or indeed if it is already registered, they'll be let in. So that's what the invite button does. You'll only have 2 when you start, and it probably won't be your immediate priority, so I'm not going to dive into that.
Upcoming events button.
Now, upcoming events is interesting to look at. This part of the app isn't brilliantly accessible. So as well as entering your hallway, as I talked about, and we'll see more of that in a minute, where all the rooms are, it's possible to schedule an event, and that way you're not reliant on someone stumbling across it. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Let's just have a look what we've got in here. As I say, this part of the app has quite a few unlabeled buttons.
No next link. Add button. Upcoming for you. Unlabeled button. Today. 1955. Learn Italian flag. Italy from 0 to hero superhero medium light skin tone woman topic. Locomiglia from 1955. Double tap to activate. Unlabeled button. Italian language and culture. Unlabeled button. 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 Unlabeled. 20 zeros with a Citrata Marcatorni. Kevin with a unlabeled button and lip. With a Citrata Marcatorni. Kevin Canvas. Soyun Joy. Pete Solstice Free and Miss Jackson Lag Nippier from Legal Experts Chat about who owns IP and independent contractor versus employee relationships. Gemstone. Out of list. Showing items 1 to 10 to 151. Double tap to activate. So there are quite a lot of unlabeled buttons between those events. Now I know that some of these buttons on iOS anyway relate to being able to RSVP to an event. That way you get notified slightly more reliably when it starts. There'll be notifications for it, so you get notified. It still works pretty well, but slightly less reliable, I think, than if you've actually RSVP'd. 2000. Seedling plant-based kitchen. Menus and meals for entertaining. From. Showing items 10 to 19 to 151. Unlabeled button. Plant-based food plus wellness. Unlabeled. 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 With Colleen. Whether it's a small group or large outdoor party, let's talk about the easiest, fastest, most delicious. Party with your questions, thoughts, and ideas out of this.
I've no idea why that's showing in my events. I'm not vegetarian, but
unlabeled 2000 Wednesday room chat speech balloon from unlabeled observing verbs. Unlabeled button. Unlabeled button. Unlabeled. Unlabeled with introvert. Nature restored. Trees or empire. 2000 Beyond leadership. Building marketplaces from unlabeled button. Tech builders. Unlabeled button. Unlabeled button. Unlabeled with Samaya Benham, Matt Newell, and Ian Fliflet, join Ian Fliflet, the chief growth officer at Red Hot Consumer Marketplace offer, will be sharing his strategies and perspective on what it takes to run, build, and grow a world-class marketplace. Might be recorded by host circle. I would listen.
I'll talk about that might be recorded by host message in a minute. So a lot of the scheduled events are, Clubhouse started out really as a networking app for different professions. So those will be the more set piece events. Sometimes regular chat things are scheduled. There's a Jaws club for the blind on here. So Visparo are very active on Clubhouse. The various vice presidents there feature on it quite heavily. So they have regular sessions where you can brush up on your Jaws tips. That might be where we take the blind Android users club. We don't know yet. We shall have to think about that. So in here, you don't necessarily have to go in and look at this. Scheduled events it thinks you'll be interested in will also pop up at the top of your hallway. I promise we will get to the actual hallway in a bit. I want to show you the first thing it said though in this screen, which was
upcoming for you.
So upcoming for you, you can double tap on this.
Clubhouse. What would you like to see? Upcoming for you. List. My events.
So I can see my events, the things I've scheduled. So I'm going to see what's in here. There shouldn't be anything, but it will show me how I can create an event.
Clubhouse. My events. Out of list. Unlabeled. Button. List. There are no upcoming events. Add one. List. There are no List. Unlabeled. Button.
So I have an
List. There are no upcoming events. Add one.
So it's telling me to add an event.
List. Unlabeled. Button.
I have a helpful unlabeled button here. I'm going to assume that's add an event.
No next link. Cancel. New event. Publish. Disabled. Public. Event name. Edit box. With Edward Green. And list. With. Double tap to active. Event name. Edit box. Out of list.
So I can give it an event name. Why don't we call it?
Show in English. Capital T. Fourth. Capital T. A. A. K. L. L. K. L. K. K. N. E. E. A. A. C. C. K. K. K.
I've called it
Cancel.
Talkback.
Clubhouse. New event. Publish. Editing. Talkback. Edit. With Edward Green. In list. Add a co-host or guest out of list. Add a co-host or guest with Edward Green. Add a co-host or guest out of list. Date. Add a co-host or guest.
So it says with Edward Green, add a co-host or guest. Now what I would like to do, and I think I can do it on iOS, is I'd like to be able to schedule a room to take place in the Blind Android Users Club. I think this is one of the club management features currently missing on Android, which hopefully will be added soon. Don't worry though, I do have that pesky iOS device when we do start running clubs in Anger. I'm just going to see if it lets me add a club as a co-host, which might solve our problem. I don't think it will though.
Keyboard hidden with done button. Search edit box. Cameron Morel. Row 1. Matthew Cooper. Ariane Abs. Andrew West. Row 2. Ariane. Matthew. Cameron Morel. Search edit box. Out of grid.
No, it's only offering me people. I'll put in blind Android users though. You never know.
L. L. I. Editing with. Showing items 13 to 22 of 22 with done button. Editing. Block. Samara Hussein. Stuart Beveridge.
No.
Tommy Corboy. Anna Boris. Lucia Bellini. Michelle DeCat.
It's not going to let me do it.
Chris Ainsworth. Row 1.
So those are my various people on Clubhouse. So I'm going to try and back out of that.
Showing items 1 to home button. With Lord Cadento Montani. Live edit box with. Done button. Live edit box. Search. Double tap and hold to lock. Tommy Corboy. Row 4. Column 9. With. With. Double tap to add. Done button. Date. May 13th.
So May 13th. Let's see how easy it is to change the date.
Previous month button. Next month. May 1st, 20th. May 2nd. May 3rd. May 4th. May 5th. May 6th. May 7th. May 8th. May 11th. Today. Selected. May 13th. May 14th. 2021. Double.
Put it for
Selected.
Friday.
Description. Edit box. 1800. Time. May 31st, 2021. Double. Time. 1800. Double tap. Description. Edit box. 200 characters remaining. 200 characters. Description. 1800.
And there's a time here.
5 button. 6 7 59 button. 7 6 edit 5 1800. 5 button. 6 edit box. 7 button.
So I could change this, I think, to.
Double tap to add a co-host or guest. Date. May 14th.
So it changed the date properly.
1800. 5 button. 6 edit box.
So I'm going to change. Slightly confusingly, it's got the time given in the 24-hour clock, but then the time increments given in the 12-hour clock. I'm not sure that's strictly necessary. I'll stick to 24 hours though, because then I won't have tedious things to decide, like whether I want it to AM or PM.
01 button. Time 002 8 0 8 5 2
I'll put it at 11. 20.
With talkback edit box with Edward Green. Add a co-host or guest out of list. Date. May 14th. Time 1800. 5 button. Editing 2 edit box. 6 3 dash 3 2 with Edward Green. Add a code. Date. May 14th. Time 1800. 5 button. Editing 2 7 button.
Yeah.
59 button.
Interesting. It hasn't let me do that.
3 2 300 PM. 59 button. 4 button. Time. Date. Add date. May 14th. Time 1500. 2 button. 3 edit box.
So it didn't let me enter it in a 24-hour clock, even though that's how it's done it, which is interesting. So let's see if I have any joy using a 12-hour clock.
4 button. 2 4 1 1 1 1. Next. Andrew Webb. 1100 PM.
Ah, that has
No
worked.
next link. No preview. With talkback edit box with Edward Green. Add a co-host or guest out. Date. May 14th. Time 2300.
So I typed it in the 12-hour clock and then hit the next key in the bottom right-hand corner.
10 button. 11 12 button. 59 button.
And here you can say 59, so that's where I would go and enter the minutes, which would work in the same way.
00 edit box. 01 button. AM button. PM edit box. Description edit box.
We have PM, which is right. Here I could add a description about what the event is. I've got 200 characters for that.
Cancel.
there's a cancel,
Publish.
and there's a publish. So if I were to fill in that description and publish the event, cancel and publish are both at the top of the screen, by the way, not the bottom, we would have an event all ready to go. I'm going to cancel it because I don't want that event.
Event name. With Edward Green. Contact. Publish. New event. Cancel. List. Back. Button. My events. Back.
So that's the My Event section.
Showing item advice. Upcoming notifications.
Now, notifications. Clubhouse sends you a lot of notifications. It will notify you about events. Perhaps people you are following have started events, or there are events in the clubs you've joined or are following. It will notify you if contacts are starting a room, if there are trending rooms, if people have just joined you might want to follow, or if someone has joined who might need approving. So there are a lot of notifications potentially. Normal is a lot. I think there's a frequent option. We'll go and look at that in settings in a minute. But yeah, there are quite a lot of notifications. So you might want to be judicious about what you let Clubhouse send you.
Search button. Advice. Upcoming event. Notification. My profile button. 22:0.
And now we're on the last of these 5 buttons, which is My Profile.
No next link. Back button. Share button. Settings button.
So you can share your profile. There's a settings button.
Photo button. Edward Green.
You can put a photo up. There's your name,
Edward 0481.
my username.
59 followers. 59.
I've got 59 followers
80 following.
and I'm following 80 people. Now, what's quite interesting, if you go into this, I said you could search for followers or people to follow. Sorry, you can't search for followers. You can search for people to follow, but you can also see who they are following. So if I go into
59 followers. 80 following.
the people that are following me,
No next link. Michelle Duquette, legally blind. Huge fan of it, still Amy Grant. Follow Twitch. Jan Longbold, global entrepreneur flag. Then follow Twitch. Music and show YouTube. It's podcasters play button. Follow Matthew Warren. I am totally blind. Follow Twitch. James Austin. Follow Twitch. Tim Schwartz. I'm a lucky husband and proud. Follow Twitch. Follow Ujarlini. I follow Twitch. Paul Beebe. Technique. Following Twitch. Anna Morris. I am totally blind. Follow Twitch. Saber Joyously. Follow Twitch. Follow. Double tap to toggle. Stuart Beveridge. I work for a charity in Scotland called Seascape was the assistive technology draw. I work for a charity in Scotland called Seascape was the assistive technology
so various people. Now, if I double tap on Stuart here,
Options. Profile photo. Follow Twitch. See suggestions for users to follow button. Stuart Beveridge.
so WhatsApp. Clubhouse can suggest people I might want to follow.
Follow you. 152 followers. 69 following.
Now, if I click on either of these, 152 followers and 69 following, I can see who he follows. And if I click on them, I can see who's following them and who they're following. So you can build up your Clubhouse network pretty quickly just by, once you've started to follow people, see who they're following. When you search for people, see who they're following, and all the rest of it. So what you can't do here just now on the Android version is you can't link your other social media profiles. So on the iOS version, you can link Twitter and Instagram. You can't do that right now. I'm going to come back out of the various follow screens.
Search button. Device. Upcoming notification. My profile. 2200. My profile.
I'm going to go back into my profile and take you very briefly into
Next link.
settings.
Back button. Share. Settings button. No next link. Back button. Settings. Notifications. Frequency. Normal.
So I've got frequency on notifications set to normal. I could go in.
Clubhouse. Notification. Very frequent. Frequent. Normal. Infrequent.
Very frequent, normal, and infrequent. I shudder to think what either very frequent or frequent are like. Normal is plenty. So include trending rooms in your notifications is on. If you're following a lot of people and don't really care what's trending, you might not want to bother doing that. You can pause notifications. What's new and FAQ/contact us. It is worth checking those. They are updated. It's there. I found out the sorts of features that weren't available on Android that and not being able to use them. I wasn't sure always whether there was a talkback issue or quite what the problem was, but it was indeed the fact that some of those features aren't available, and that was confirmed in the what's new and in the FAQ/contact us. Community guidelines,
privacy policy, log out.
All that good legal stuff. Is worth reading the legal stuff on the Clubhouse. I said I'd one of the events we looked at said it was going to be recorded. Clubhouse doesn't allow you to record things natively. They record a room while it's in progress in case anything's reported, but apparently once you then leave the app and that room's closed, once that room's closed, once everybody's left it, that recording is not kept. So Clubhouse content is pretty ephemeral. That means people who want to use it for podcasting have to find some other means of recording it, and they are advised to specify when they are doing that they're being recorded, because obviously Clubhouse doesn't let you record and doesn't enable you to record. So that's why you'll sometimes see rooms are being recorded. So its kind of content is immediate on Clubhouse. There's no archive, there's no going back to it natively anyway. So we finally finished all the boring settings, so we can actually look at some of the stuff in the hallway, and I might go to some of my clubs in a minute just to show you what the club view's like, although it's not particularly exciting with no club management available. But let's have a flick through, see what we've got.
Go next link. Profile photo. Edward Green. Edward 0.
Back out of profile. Sorry, I forgot we had to do that.
Go next link. It's the open circle. Your open circle. Hosted by your open circle. Stephen, Ali, Paul, Neil, 17 listening, 7 speakers. Double tap to activate. So
we have there an open circle is a club I'm a member of. They've got a fairly free-form room on by the looks of it.
Hosted by God's Radio. Stephen, Grant, Bree, Andrew, 7 listening, 7 speakers. Double tap to activate.
That's not part of a club. You see there was no club name there. That's just a social room that people I followed have set up.
Palestine under attack. Gaza under fire. Civilians dead flag. Palestinian territories. Stephen, add, email, Janelle, listening. Cameron, 322 listening. 25 speakers. Enlist. So clearly something discussing the latest troubles in the Middle East. Palestinian extremists ruling Indian image on CH and in the world. Stephen, Bakashi, Sanata, attack, listening. Matthew, 81 listening, 16 speakers. Yeah, Clubhouse is getting quite political tonight, isn't it? Live piano bar from my living room. Hosted by live piano bar from home. Stephen, Mark, Side, Calvin, listening. Stephen, 22 listening, 12 speakers. So people do use Clubhouse for media performances. So music, they'll do it to record their podcast. This piano bar is really nice and chilled. I'm going to show you a room, and I'm going to have to do this and then hurriedly turn the media volume down, because strictly speaking, we're not supposed to record Clubhouse content, as I've just said. But I would like to show you what the inside of a room looks like, so you can see what you do. So you may hear a little bit of it, but it'll be the briefest of interludes when I'm going to double tap this piano bar room. Showing items 1 to 14 of 28. I don't actually work it. So all the way down. I doubt much of that came out because it sounded like they were in an interlude. So now in this room, you can see the various different people in it. Live piano bar, row 2. I'll live piano bar from my living room, row 1. Club, live piano bar from home. Options, button. Mark, row 2, column 1. Let's see what options we've got. Clubhouse, share room, search room. Report audio problem. Search room, share room. I don't want to do any of that. I could share it, I could search it, I could say there's a problem. There is a problem, I've got no sound, but that's because I've turned my volume down. Now, the buttons you're going to want to know about here are towards the bottom of your screen. If you've got a navigation bar enabled, as I have, they'll be slightly above that, but generally speaking, at the bottom. Leave quietly, button out of grid. Leave quietly is the bottom left. There's no other way to leave, really. You enter and leave quietly. You're not obviously notified. Raise hand button. Leave quietly button. Hit someone, raise hand. Hit someone into the room button. And then towards the right hand side, you've got ping someone into the room. So let's say I'm in a room and it's about cricket or something, and I think Austin's going to be interested. I can hit this ping. I can invite him. Now, raised hand. So I mentioned very briefly earlier on this idea of a stage. So when you come into a room, you are in the audience. Almost, unless you're an admin of the club, in which case you'll already be on stage. So because Clubhouse caters for various different things, including one-man presentations in front of hundreds of people, it's not like Zoom where everyone's empowered to speak. You are in the audience and can't really do anything other than listen. If you want to speak, you need to be invited up on stage, and that's what this raise hand button does. So I'm going to hit this and hope someone invites me. Raise hand button. Raise your hand. This will let the speakers know you have something you'd like to say. Never mind button. Raise hand button. Clubhouse. Raise hand button. Home button. Leave quietly button. Pick someone. Raise hand button.
Nah, so that's interesting. It's not showing me I've got my hand raised. There's no status change. I wonder if it will show
Lift
me
piano bar from my living room. Row 1. Left side. Row 2.
if
column
I'm
5.
invited
Claire,
up.
Row 3. Sharon. Row 4. Lynn. Row 5. Followed by the speakers. Row 6. Home button. Out of print. Leave Lynn. Row 5. Sharon. Row 4. Claire. Row 3. Side. Row 2. Lift piano bar from club. Lift piano bar from home. Options button. Mark. Row. Side. Calvin. John. Claire. Ray. Paula. Sharon. Home. Neela. Lynn. Nava. Followed Elizabeth. Row 7. Maria G. Fatima. Stephen. Sherry. Nicole. Column 7. Aristide. Column. Raise hand. Button. Out of print. Pick someone into the leave quiet. Edward. Row 11. Column 7. Ray. Column 4. Ray. Edward. Column 7. Maria G. Followed by this. Lynn. Column 5. Maybe later. Button. Out of print.
So they have asked me if I want to join.
Join a speaker. Button. Maybe later. Button. Waving hand. Medium light skin tone size. Sultan invited you to join as a speaker. Show. Maybe later. Button.
So that appeared near the top of my screen. It's possible that I was flicking past that and interrupted the notification. But if you have been invited up, it will appear above the list of people in the room.
Join a speaker. Button. Maybe later. Button.
So if I join a speaker, I'm going to be off mute. The etiquette is to go immediately on mute until you're actually speaking. The mute button is where the raise hand button was in the bottom right hand corner. So if you do hit join a speaker, do then immediately go and hit that mute button because you may well be unmuted at the time. So I'm going to actually hit maybe later because I don't want to join. And now I'm going to leave quietly. So I'm very sorry, whoever's room that was, that I just exploited it for my own purposes and for the purposes of the podcast. We didn't, though, record anything we shouldn't have done because, as I say, I turned the volume down straight away and it did serve its purpose. So, as I say, it could be that I swiped and missed the notification, but as I say, if you don't hear anything, check near the top of the screen because that is where the little banner will pop up enabling you to join. But it's interesting that the status of the raise hand button isn't reflected. Let me go and show you what else you can do. Start a room. Let's do this. So I'm going to do this not in a club at the minute. I'm just going to hit start a room. That'll be near the bottom of the feed, the bottom of the hallway. You have a few rooms on your hallway to start with, and then just before the starter room, you'll have.
Hosted by Alice under attack. Alice proved to be late not speaking then Portia Williams. Eyes watch. Go face with tears of joy afternoon delight. Word up. How will humans ever make it to Adam out the podcast? As the first ever tattoo NFT drop with Ferris Rod reunion part 2 recap presented by Club Ellen Show's ending. Thoughts.
So these are all just different. So explore to see more rooms is what you'll have before start a room. So it'll give you, I don't know how many on your feed. It does seem to vary a little bit, maybe 10 or 15. But if you want to see more, hit that start a room button. As I say, if you're not following many people or aren't in many clubs, what you will see on there will be a little bit varied. You'll get a fair amount of foreign language content potentially, because it will just show you rooms from all over the place if you haven't really followed anyone. So, and depending on what time of day you log in, but yeah, that's something to bear in mind. Let's click start a room.
Clubhouse. Add a topic button. Selected. Open. Row 1. Column 1. Social. Column. Closed. Club. Blind Android users. Row 2.
So this is good. Here I can pick what sort of a room it is. I went through these at the start, if you remember.
Selected. Open. Column 1.
Open room. Anyone can join it.
Social. Column 2.
Social. My followers and anyone who joins the room's followers. Closed. It's whoever I decide to invite.
Club. Blind Android. Club. Sports Bar and Grill.
Or I can have it in any of the clubs I'm a member of.
Club. Blind Android users. Club. Sports Bar and Grill. Club. The Blind Alliance. Club. Jaw Software /T Blind. Row 3. Column 1.
That's interesting. The Spiro let me create rooms in their club. That's really nice of them.
Club. True Crime Talks. Column 2. Start a room open to everyone. Out of grid. Party hopper. Let's go. Button. Start a room open to everyone.
And that thing there, start a room open to everyone, is just reflecting whatever I've selected previously. So if I were to select a club instead, let's select blind Android users.
Selected. Club.
And if I flick right now,
Club. Start a room for blind Android users members. Out of grid.
start a room for blind Android users members.
Party hopper. Let's go. Button.
And there's the let's go button. So I could go in there and do that. There are other things I could show you here. So but this demo is already getting quite long. We could look at what happens if you're a moderator in a room. So that's where essentially you are looking out for people whose hands might be raised, and where you invite them to the stage, or you might want to put them back in the audience. That might have to be for another time, though. One, because I don't have anyone lined up who I can manipulate in a club and throw out of a club right now. And also, as I say, because this demo is getting pretty long. What I should say, though, is if you want a much more comprehensive look at Clubhouse from a blindness perspective, that will talk you over many of the principles, you could do a lot worse than check out Jonathan Mosen's podcast episode that he did on the Mosen at Large podcast. I can't remember the episode number, but it was a good hour and a half on Clubhouse where he demonstrates it. It is on the iPhone, but absent the features which don't exist on Android yet, the operation, to be honest, is pretty similar. So if he demonstrate, if you listen to that in terms of how the platform works, if you want to know more about it, if you want to know more about some of the pitfalls, then I would recommend that even for Android users. It's a great resource, and he does demonstrate how to manipulate people when you're hosting a room. So I hope you like Clubhouse. Do join the Blind Android Users Club. Search for us. We'll probably put our details in the how to get in touch with us at the end of the episode. And yeah, do write in. Let us know what you think about Clubhouse. Well, I hope that was useful. There are increasing numbers of people with Android joining Clubhouse. I'm conscious that I haven't finished that demo yet. What I haven't shown you is how you can manipulate people within a room. So if you're a moderator, you can invite people up on stage. You can see who's got their hands up. You can put them back in the audience. That is something I will look to do. But I think, are all of us on Clubhouse now? Has everyone signed up?
I think so.
Well, you know, even I, who is not the social networking kind of guy, I finally dragged myself into it yesterday. So yours truly faithfully is there now. And if you see my knucklehead out there, I'm definitely in there. So I will be doing some activity there on our Clubhouse, in our club, or whatever. What do you call it? Is that going to be our club
It's a
room?
club.
It's a club, yeah.
Club.
Yeah. So you create rooms within clubs. So if you do want to do some activity, go into the club and hit the start room button, and that will create a club room. The club without a room going on is just a list of names, really. So the admins have to go in and actually into the club and start a room to make something happen. And you can have more than one room in a club.
You can also have just a room without it being associated with a club too. So.
You can, yeah. So anyone who wants to talk about Android outside of the Blind Android Users Club can do that. It'll just be a bit harder to find.
Yeah, but we'd rather have you do it within the Blind Android Users so that people will find where you're at, right?
Yeah, exactly. But only we can create rooms in that. Only the admins can. So people just have to be patient till one of us does it.
It's actually a really great app, I think. I definitely swore that I would not get on it until the Android version came out. Everybody on the other side on the iOS said, jump on Clubhouse, where are you? And I'm like, well, it's still not on Android. So, but finally we've gotten it, and I'm just waiting for them to make more updates because we still have the old version of Clubhouse, and it's definitely not the same as the iOS version yet, but they are releasing it slowly and making lots of updates, so I'm looking forward to that.
They update it quickly. I mean, there are things that the Android version doesn't do very well. I mean, there are things it doesn't do at all, which is annoying, but there are also things it doesn't do very well. So in the demo, I discussed that I wasn't sure if TalkBack notified you when someone accepts your invitation to speak. If you put your hand up, because I was flicking around, I didn't know if TalkBack told you that you'd been invited up. It doesn't. iOS now, it'll auto-focus and tell you. In TalkBack, it makes a noise and the audio quality from your speaker changes, and the little banner comes up at the top of the screen. So if you hear the beep and your audio change, you'll know. I don't think it puts itself as aggressively into the foreground as the iOS version does.
I see. What I would love to see, though, that I didn't see, and I was just kind of thinking now to myself, was that I wish it would tell you when you see the names of people on the screen, and then you would know who is talking. Like if you come across the person that
Yeah,
is
the iOS
currently
version does
speaking.
that too. With a
Oh, it does that?
yeah,
It's a
it does it.
Huh?
The iOS does. Hopefully they'll add it to Android.
yeah.
Yeah, that
I'm
Hopefully
sure
would
they
they
be.
will. The other
do.
thing they need to do is tell you whether your hands up.
Yeah.
Yes, and the thing with iOS, you can do a two-finger double tap, and it'll tell you who's currently speaking. And I'm not sure how they will transfer that over to Android, but hopefully they find a way to do that. But also, it does not tell you if people are muted when you're swiping through the room. It doesn't tell you, if they're muted or not muted, and that's something I'm waiting for them to fix.
I think this is probably one of the reasons why it's not being rolled out to everybody except through invitation. But I think in general, I kind of like the UI is nice and clean.
I really want the club admin features at the minute, because if I want to invite someone who's followed the club to join the club, I have to hook out my dusty old iPhone from the bottom of the drawer where it deserves to live and promote it undeservedly to use and let people join, which I'm doing very often because I don't want to keep people waiting. But when that feature comes to the Android app, I'll be a happy founder.
Yeah, I'll be happy when they let you make clubs on Android, because right now we don't even have that functionality.
Yeah, that's right. Although if you're very new, you can't make clubs anyway. You have to be active. I tried to do it early on, and it just said I wasn't important enough. I hadn't been using it often enough, and I should go away and try later and get a bit more active. And who did I think I was, basically?
Yeah, I don't know about this, but I was reading about this thing, and I hope it's not another repeat of Zoom, because there was some stuff out there that was saying, hey, they have their back end in China, and so they were denying that, no, we have our stuff in the US, and I hope we're not having another repeat of a Zoom debacle here.
Yeah, I felt sorry for Zoom, though. I mean, it grew very quickly, and the people that were really finding reasons to criticize it, bigger companies with chat apps had their own issues previously, and I think, Zoom's tried, hasn't it? We might not like everything it's decided to do, but it has tried to fix its vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and I think that really helps Zoom, because now we have a better Zoom than what it was, and I think it's good that these things is coming early on Clubhouse, and I hope that the issues get addressed too, because they're talking about security, and that's important.
Yeah.
The best feature that I like is, let's say you're talking on a club room with without headphones, and your speaker is on, then no one can hear your talk back. Only you can hear. That is the best feature. I don't know how they do it, but that is a very nice feature.
It is good. They can hear your haptics, though, I discovered yesterday. The OnePlus has very loud haptics if you don't disable them.
My issue with Clubhouse is because most of the time I use Bluetooth headphones, and for some reason I cannot get my input to be my Bluetooth. It's just stuck on the actual device microphone, and so I always have to be holding the actual phone if I do want to talk. And I mean, this is just, it's obviously still in beta for the Android version, but has anybody experienced that, or is it just my phone or something?
I don't think it is your phone. Someone said on the email list they were having problems with this. I haven't tried it, to be honest. It's still in beta for iOS, by the way, as well, after a year.
Oh, is it still in beta for iOS too? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, they say Clubhouse as a service is in beta. It's not in beta insofar as you need to be on test flight, literally in beta, but they're describing the whole thing as being in beta.
It is in beta. Well, yesterday when I was talking with those girls, I had my headset on. Now, what I should have done was to leave my phone in the house. And maybe after this, we could try it real quick and see. I'll leave my phone upstairs and go outside and see if you guys can hear me or something like that.
Excellent. Yeah, so do check out Clubhouse. It's on the Play Store, or there's an APK mirror link, which is in the YouTube notes, I think, to the demo. We'll add it to the show notes as well.
तो दोस्तों, ये था आज का शो। ये जो पॉडकास्ट था ये ब्लाइंड एंड्रॉयड यूज़र की तरफ से था, और मुझे उम्मीद है कि आपको ये पॉडकास्ट समझ आया होगा। अगर आपको कहीं पर भी कोई डाउट आता है तो आप इनकी वेबसाइट पे जाकर इन्हें पूछ सकते हैं। आप हमें भी पूछ सकते हैं, विजिट कर सकते हैं रेडियो उड़ान की वेबसाइट जो कि है www.radioudan.com। आप मुझे minalsinghvi@gmail.com minalsinghvi@gmail.com पर भी मेल कर सकते हैं। अपने पॉडकास्ट आप हमारे साथ शेयर कर सकते हैं, आप रेडियो उड़ान के साथ कोलैबोरेट कर सकते हैं और इसके अलावा आप हमारे मेंबर भी बन सकते हैं, आरजे भी बन सकते हैं। सारी डिटेल आपको वेबसाइट पर मिल जाएगी, तो एक बार आप विजिट ज़रूर करिएगा। और जो हमने बात की थी अभी क्लब हाउस के बारे में, तो मेजरली देखो जो मैंने देखा है, मुझे कोई खास डिफरेंस नहीं लगा आईफोन और एंड्रॉयड में। अभी एंड्रॉयड में क्लब बनाने का ऑप्शन नहीं दिया गया, अदरवाइज तो एज इट इज जो आईफोन में फीचर्स है वही सेम टू सेम एंड्रॉयड में फीचर्स है। तो इसीलिए ये इंग्लिश में था। अगर आपको नहीं समझ आया तो एक बार आप आईफोन वाला जो पॉडकास्ट है वो भी देख लीजिएगा। और वैसे देखा जाए तो काफ़ी हद तक बहुत क्लियर था यहाँ पर, तो आपको समझ आ जाना चाहिए। बट फिर भी आपको कहीं पर भी डाउट आती है तो आप कांटेक्ट ज़रूर कर लीजिएगा। कुछ काम है जो आपको करना है। सबसे पहला, आपको हमारा जो यूट्यूब का चैनल है रेडियो उड़ान, इसको सब्सक्राइब करना है, ठीक है, और मेरे शो को लाइक करना है। और आखिरी काम, आपको क्लब हाउस पर रेडियो उड़ान को फॉलो करना है। तो चलिए, अब होता है वक्त जाने का, तो मैं चलती हूँ। अगले हफ्ते फिर मिलेंगे किसी एक नए पॉडकास्ट के साथ, किसी और एक शो में। तब तक अपना बहुत ध्यान रखिएगा और सुनते रहिएगा रेडियो उड़ान, अ फ्लाइट ऑफ।
रेडियो उड़ान की अपडेट्स लेने के लिए इस चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और इस वीडियो को ज्यादा से ज्यादा लाइक कीजिए और शेयर कीजिए। फॉर मोर इन्फो लॉग ऑन टू www.radioudan.com।